Okay, you know what? Here's a quote I want to give you. Circumstances are rulers of the weak and the tools of the wise. Circumstances are rulers of the weak and tools to the wise. Well, what's that mean? I can tell you right now, I love you all, but some of you so blatantly look like you are living under the circumstances. You're bringing my attitude down. You ever got tired of living life like you feel like you're living between a fire hydrant and a big dog? You understand, for the first time in most of your lives, certainly in mine, this business was the first thing given to me that I could control the circumstances instead of somebody else. Are you taking advantage of that? Are you really taking advantage of that, or are you still living life under the circumstances? I want to show you something here. Some of you probably have seen this, but I think it so illustrates a very, very important point. Okay, Bob, have you seen this before, Bob? Why don't you come on up here, okay? I know they're not exactly even and so forth. Bob, here's my instructions. You've not seen this little example, right? Okay, I want to give you this marker. I want you to start right here on that dot. I want you to connect all 9 dots with 4 lines, never taking the marker off the board. Would you do that for me? Go ahead. Starting on that corner one. So put it there. Now don't lift it. Now all 4 of them with 4 lines.
Take it off after I...
Yeah, that's right. 4 lines. You don't move it. Take it off of the board. Try and connect them with 4 lines. There's one. Didn't work, did it? Give you one more shot. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. You know what? Don't feel bad. Here's the cap. Okay? But you stay right here for a second. Step over to the side there. Okay. Here's the challenge. As simple as this little demonstration is, I asked Bob to do, most of us, when we see this for the first time, would not be able to win at it either. But all you have to do is put it here, go up here, here, it's 2 lines, 3 lines, and 4. You know what, Bob, I never told you had to stay in the box. But you know what, guys? That's what you're doing. That's what most of us are doing. We're living life in the box. Who told you had to stay in the box? And you're trying to build this business in that box that you're so used to living in. And nobody even gave you that set of rules. But you know what? That's how we live life so long that we've locked ourselves mentally in. We don't even see past these unsaid rules. And you know what it's all about, guys? It's about coming out of who you are. Aren't you tired of who you are? Come on, let's be honest. Most of us would have to be a yes on that. Because, you know why? Are you a bad person? Heck no. I don't think I'm a bad person. But I believe there's a greater person inside dying to come out in each and every one of us. But you keep trying to live life by a set of rules that somebody out there has put on you, and you're not winning. And I don't believe that you're going to win in this business coming in, staying that same person that lived by a certain set of rules all your life, and then you come in here and try and win. It's all about coming out of who you are and becoming that person you really are inside that's dying to come out. Honestly, I'm going to ask a question. I do have a quirky personality in this respect. When I ask a question, I actually expect an answer. But honestly, how many, when I'm talking about that person inside dying to come out, how many of you know what I'm talking about? Raise your hands. And how many of you behind closed doors lay your head down that pillow at night and scream inside because you know exactly what I'm talking about and you know there's a better person inside? How many of you can relate to that? I'll tell you what, you know what I've come to the point of I want to do in this business? And some of you, you know what part of this is you've heard some of the things that have been spoken at a function so many times that your ears have become callous to the truth, and you're no longer hearing. You know, Sis said something really, really important, and she talked about the dream dying. And some of us have heard Dexter and so many other people talk about the dream, the dream, the dream, till you don't hear it any longer. And you've now quit trying to build a business with a dream, and you're just trying to build it through gut effort. And you know what? Know something, folks? Building this business without a dream really sucks. Because living life without a dream sucks. Okay? And you know what? Why we have a tendency to take that dream and set aside is because it's work. It is work to build that dream. What's your first name? Mike. It's work to get out there and build that dream. To build that dream of what you would like to accomplish, it takes effort. You know why it's so much effort? Because when you go to work Monday, everything about that job is telling you you can't have it. And I'll have to throw a little side note here because I don't see any diamonds in here. And I wouldn't say this to a diamond, but I will say it to all of you. You know, there are so many things in life and society against this subject I'm talking about right now, because the dream and so much of what we're going to talk about is attitude, that you have to protect it, you have to fight for it, you have to develop it, and then you treat it as if it's a child of yours that you're going to protect. And you know what? Let me ask you something. Are you exposing that? You know, you always have to expose your dream to the J-O-B. You already have to expose it to good friends and family who are going to do such nice things like put you down, tell you you can't accomplish things and so forth. Let me ask you this. Are you also putting it through Dan Rather? Are you putting it through Fox News? Are you putting it through CNN? You know what, folks? Your attitude and this thing called the dream is so valuable to you, you have to protect it. Because this business, the battle of this business is won or lost right here. Are you winning or losing the battle? Because, you know, I've heard people say you're 6 inches away from success, the distance from one ear to the next. And you know what? That is absolutely true in this business. It's all in your head, how you look at things. And are you protecting this up here? Are you going out on a day that you have time available? When was the last time? Honestly, you don't have to raise your hands on this. But when was the last time you went out and sat in a luxury vehicle that is something, you may not even know it's your dream, but you want to go out and find out, hey, could I get excited about this? Or a boat, or a house. And I don't mean just going to an open house, taking 10 minutes, walking through. Yeah, this is nice. Yeah, I'm fired up. I'm talking about going in. Go to that bathroom, sit down on that toilet and say, I wonder if I really would like this. Look in that bedroom, really look around, and get your creativity flowing, and really look at this place and ask yourself if that could excite you. Have you ever done that? Have you ever taken somebody out to do that? How often do you do that? I remember hearing Dexter talk about a time where he got some diamonds together that they had kind of stalled out, and he realized that they had kind of not revived that dream. About 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, he was with these men who are giants in the business, and they were looking at a houseboat. And all of a sudden, it was like working and working and working to get that dream fired up in these guys. And all of a sudden, one guy said, well, you know, we could do this. We could put, I guess you could put this over here. And another guy said, yeah, that'd work. You know, and then another one chipped in and said, yeah, and you know, you could do this to this boat and blah, blah, blah. And they all started getting on the bandwagon. And the next thing you know, one of them said they looked over and they saw Dexter just kind of lean against the wall with a big smile, because he realized he finally did it. But it took him a day to do it. Now, these are men who are already very, very successful in the business. People are very successful in the business. So what about most of us in this room that have a job every day you're going to, 5, 6 days a week? They're being bombarded with that. How much effort are you putting into it? How much effort are you into developing that baby of yours called the dream? Or have you thought that you can just gut it out? You know what I've, since August or end of July, something that I've gotten excited about? $1.3 million a year. $1.3 million a year. Can you think about that? $1.3 million a year. Would some of you double your income if you got that? What would that be like? Have you dared to think about that? Have you dared to think about, maybe you're thinking too small. Maybe you're making 50 or 60 and you're just thinking about making 100 and you're not getting motivated by that. You're not getting inspired. I don't believe any one of us in here are lazy. But I believe there are a lot of uninspired people in the world. Okay, can you say that?
1.3 mil, yeah.
No, say the whole word, because I mean it just rolled.
1.3 million?
Yeah, there you go. Doesn't that? 1.3 million. How many of you did not know you could, honestly, didn't even realize you could make that kind of $100,000 a month? $100,000 a month. Think about that. That's $25,000 a week. $25,000 a week. What if you sat and started thinking about what if $25,000 a week? You know what? You've got to get out of the box. You know, one of the sad things about it is that in order to get from wherever you're at now to there, wherever it is, there is a very challenging thing that has to happen from point A to point B. And what do you think that is? Change. And that's part of coming out of who you are, okay? And I would just encourage you to get excited enough about the possibilities in this business, to have the courage enough to build a dream. And you know what? It does take courage, because it takes courage to build up hope, because with hope you risk, right? Disappointment. So it takes courage to do that, and I'm inviting you and asking you to take the courage to build that dream. Because with that dream, you will be inspired to do much, much greater things in this business than you thought you could. Because just trying to gut it out will not do it. And you've got to get yourself inspired. So I've got a couple things I'd like to talk about that might help along the way. One thing that I am very strong in, that I have developed some good abilities in, and it's a point that is very important no matter where you're at in the business, and that's developing a list of names. You can get yourself that dream, you can get yourself inspired, and you know what? If with inspiration comes the courage to do a lot of things of what I'm going to talk about right now. But there's going to basically be three types of levels that you're going to experience dealing with prospects in this business. Level number one is when you're brand new, is making that initial list of names, everybody and anybody you know. Now, I know some of you, or a lot of you in here, you're past that point. I'm going to get to you in a minute. But those of you who are pretty new in the business, you're going to want to start out by putting that initial list of names down of everybody and anybody you know, even those people that you say, well, I'm not sure how I would ever call that person. Doesn't make any difference. Somebody in your support team is probably going to be able to help you to make that call to that type of person if you really can't do it, okay? But you put down everybody, and with that list, you want to go and put a check mark. I always have somebody put a check mark next to the names of the people that have ever been over their home to visit them. When you start out a brand new person, have them identify those names that have ever been over. And then those are ones that we want to have what I call an easy meeting. Because these are people that are comfortable coming to your home. They've been there before. They've been over for a video. They've been over for a barbecue, came over to watch a Bruins game or what have you. And those are good people to invite over for a first easy meeting, a business launch type meeting. But you know, a funny thing about it, what's your first name? Josh. Josh and I could have worked together for 5 years at the same company. But if I've never been to Josh's house or he's never been to mine, you know I can invite him to my house and there's a good chance he's not going to come. Nothing against Josh, but my home is not in his comfort zone. So the likelihood of Josh coming over is slim. I'm doing myself an injustice to invite Josh to my home. So once you go through those lists of names, the people that have been to your home, I want to call Josh up and go meet him at his home. And where he knows me, he'll be comfortable letting me come over to his home. And he'll be there because I'm not asking him to do anything, but just be home, maybe have some coffee on, and even if he's had a bad day at work, he'll be there. All right? So that's your initial list. Now, the initial list, no matter how big it is a blessing. But don't idolize it. Get through it, because the best list you're ever going to have are going to be the people you haven't even met yet. So let's get on to that, because I have a feeling for a lot of you that's a big area that you would like to get better at. Am I correct? How many of you would like to really be dynamic at meeting people and developing a list of names? Remember, circumstances are rulers of the weak, but tools to the wise. And I'm going to share with you one way that even if you, because first step is the initial list. The next step is how to meet people when you're not that comfortable doing it. How many of you would think, and it would have to say that you're really not that comfortable going out and meeting new people? Okay, now the rest of you are dog-tired, you can't raise your arms, okay? All right, there she slipped it up at the end there. You know what? I'm going to give you an icebreaker, because most of us do not feel that we can just go up to a stranger and contact them, and that's not what I'm saying. So I'm going to tell you a story that truly happened in my business with a gentleman that moved from New Hampshire to Tennessee, about 2 hours south of Nashville. I mean, Podunk, America, all right? And this guy was a nice guy. His name was Mike, but he really did not have a lot of people skills. He was very shy, very backward. He milked cows for a living, okay? And he moved down to Tennessee. And he was not in a spot in my organization that was really a priority where he was located. And geographically, I needed another distance group like I needed a hole in the head. Out of the blue, Mike calls me up and says, hey, I want to know if you'd come down here and help me build the business. Well, you know, you don't just tell somebody no. Okay, I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, Mike, and here was his rules. I said, here's what I'll do. If you can get 50 business cards, I'll fly down and help you build it. Now, I hate to tell you this, but part of my thinking was I probably was not going to hear from Mike again. Okay? I thought, well, I'm not going to need to fly down to this area of Tennessee. But I said, here's the rules, Mike. Number one, don't you dare mention the business. Because I knew if Mike tried to say something, he'd be eaten alive, because he had zero posture. Most of the time, you know, if you've ever worked around dairy people, I don't care what they do, they bring the dairy smell with them, right? I mean, this guy it was a lot of factors hurting him. And I said, don't you mention the business. I said, you go get me 50 business cards. Number one, you have to have met every one of them. And I said, I don't want you to have some long song and dance relationship with them. I said, but I want you to at least face-to-face met this person. I don't want you to go in the Shoney's, reach in the fishbowl, and get 50 cards. And number three, this was a personal thing, don't approach any car salesman, okay? And I said, you get those 50 cards, and when you've got them, give me a call. And I said, I'll arrange for coming down to Tennessee. About 7 days later, Mike calls me up and says, I got the cards. Actually, he says, I got about 70 of them. I said, you did? I thought, oh, no. I said, you did, Mike? He said, oh, yeah. I said, I got them right here in my hand. Oh, here was the fourth qualifier. They all had to be in Nashville. Because I said, if I'm going to fly down there, I can't fly to Nashville, drive 2 hours into the sticks, places where you see weird little kids playing banjos on front porches. I said, if you're going to meet new people, let's meet them where it works for both of us. I said, so they all have to be in Nashville. That was the other thing, okay? So I said, Mike, do you have anything like a Kinko's or a copy place around where you could photocopy all those cards? He said, oh, yeah. I said, you know what? For a few bucks, you can fax those to me. I said, I'd like to get a look at those. And by the end of the day, he faxed them. And I'll tell you what, folks, I was impressed. I mean, I was impressed. Owners of businesses, salespeople for places. You know what he did? This guy was sharp. He was just common sense sharp. He went to the car dealership. He didn't talk to the salesman. You know what he did? He went to the parts counter. No one ever talked to them. And here's what he did. He'd go in and say, hi, my name's Mike. I'm new in the area. I just wanted to stop in. You know, I own a GM product or whatever, and I just want to get to know the places I might get service. Hey, do you have a card? Great. Thanks a lot. Now, you know why a lot of you aren't approaching people or contacting? You think you have to have some long-term relationship, some whining and dining and relationship building. You don't. You don't have to have that. Actually, in a lot of cases, it's better if you didn't. And so anyways, you know what, folks? I was on the hook. I had these cards now, and I booked a flight. I am a man of my word. And I told them I would make 100% of the calls. Now, this is the worst of the worst situation. I'm calling from a list. I'm saying, hi, my name's Steve Life. I'm a businessman from York, Maine. You don't know me, but a friend of mine by the name of Mike referred you to me. And, oh, by the way, you don't know Mike either. I mean, this is tough. This is the toughest of tough. Over 50% of the people I called committed to a meeting with me. Okay? Now, here's the thing. I flew down. Now, that's not to brag about me. I want you to understand how simple it really is, folks, to meet people and get meetings to show the plan. I went down to this hotel, and we had the people come to the hotel to meet us there. This is God's honest truth. Not one of them recognized Mike at all. His encounter with each one of them was so brief, none of them remembered him. Matter of fact, some of them look at him like, now where did I meet you? And they'd really question this guy. But here's my point. Circumstances are rulers of the weak and tools to the wise. Remember earlier I said for the first time maybe in your life you've been given an opportunity to control circumstances, but you're not? Do you know tomorrow you could say, okay, honey, or whichever, husband to the wife, or vice versa, or if you're single, you can say, I'm going out and get 5 cards today. I'm going to get out and get 15 cards this week. This month, I'm going to get 100 cards. You know how you do it? You may be or maybe not in the market of a dishwasher right now. But let's say you are. A smart consumer will go out and get educated on everything. You look up in the yellow pages in your area, and you visit every appliance store you can imagine. Might be in the market for new flooring, like Sis was talking about. Then you go everywhere that there's a flooring dealer around, and you meet someone, and you get educated. Because, see, some of you aren't going and doing this because you say, well, geez, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to be buying that this week. Doesn't make any difference, folks. Okay? So you're not getting out there to do it. But you know what? I don't know anyone who's successful and wealthy who don't go out and take time to shop, to get educated about what their dollar should buy. So why shouldn't you do it? You think you're walking out and your checkbook balance is printed on your forehead. It's not, trust me. But you can go out and do this. You interested in new cabinets? You go out and talk to every cabinet person you can imagine. You know why? You're legitimate. You are a potential buyer. You're not wasting their time. Now, I do tell someone, look, I tell them when I get there, look, to be honest with you, we're just in the early stages of shopping for cabinets. I'm not going to do anything this month, but I'm getting out here to see what's on the market, what my dollar should buy, and I want to get educated. And I tell them that front so that they don't think that I'm going to be buying something at the end of this talk. Because I do respect that, but you know what? They owe that to me because that's business. That's business. So you know what? You can, instead of sitting around, matter of fact, I think a quote I once heard Ted Fish say was, man who sit on mountain with mouth open will go hungry waiting for cooked duck to fly in. Is it something like that? Okay. Okay. But anyways, the point of that is you know what? I can tell you there's not a lot of things that I can promise you about this business, but here is one of them. Sitting at home, you will meet no one. Okay? You have got to get out there, and I'm just offering you a way to break the ice, to get out there and meet people, and you can actually start saying, okay, I'm going to get this many cards this month. All right? Now, would you like to know how to approach someone like that? Okay, here's how I do it with a card. You obviously don't have a home number at this stage because I'm giving you the simplest approach. We're going to go on to the next one in just a minute. But I'm giving you an approach that's so easy because you don't have to talk about your business. You don't have to approach them. Hey, do you like what you're doing? None of that stuff face to face. But now it's time to call those people. And when I do that, I pick up that card and I call them at work. I get them and I say, hi, Bob, this is Steve Lifeit. I don't know if you remember me, but we met at Home Depot a couple weeks ago. I was a fella, and there's always something that takes place in our conversation that he'll remember me by, I promise you. Number one, probably because I'll use his name more than anybody he ever interacts with. Just like a waitress or a waiter at a restaurant. I always use their name. Their name tag is there for a reason. Hey, Mary, how you doing? How's life treating you? You know, get to talking to people, folks. This guy that Sis was talking about, when I went to meet him, I did the third approach, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But when I got talking to him, you'd be surprised where he was working. And you know what his background was? Long-term planning for Fidelity Investments. That department got shut down. And I mean, this guy was from the venture capital world and everything. And you'd be amazed where we met this guy at. But it's all because we're out meeting people. So anyways, you pick up that card and I say, hey, Bob, this is Steve Blythe. I don't know if you remember, but remember a couple weeks ago we were talking. As a matter of fact, I was the man that said I was from Ohio and you had a cousin that lived, or whatever, to refresh his memory. Bob, I'm not calling you about the cabinets right now, but let me tell you why I am calling. You know, I loved the way you handled yourself, and I loved the way you handled me. Now, I always give a true compliment. If I can't say honestly, the card doesn't make the pile. I mean, if Bob ends up being a true zipperhead, he's not going to make the card pile. Because I've got to feel like I can honestly call him and compliment him and not give him just a fake thing, okay? Flattery. But anyways, Bob, I'm not calling about the cabinets right now, but let me tell you why I am. I just was so impressed with the way you handled yourself that I felt compelled to keep your card, to call you back, and ask you a very unusual question. Folks, this next question is probably the only original thing I've ever come up with, and I can tell you right now, if you don't use it, you're doing yourself a great disservice because it works great. Bob, let me ask you something. Do you see what you're doing for work as a career, or would you be open to any other options? I could say, Bob, do you see working at Home Depot as a career, or would you be open to any other options? Hey, Mary, let me ask you something. Is Denny's a career, or would you be open to any other options? Hey, Tom, is 7-Eleven a career, or are you open to any other options? Now, you may say, well, you'd be amazed how many sharp people I've met at 7-Elevens, working at 7-Elevens, particularly in an economy like this, or a Denny's, or like this guy, Bob. I'll tell you, there's a lot of people been displaced out there, folks. A lot of good people. I met a guy one time at a convenience store that I got talking with him, and I come to find out he was from the biotech field. But the biotech field had gone through some rough times, and he told me, he said, because here's what I said to him. You ever wonder, well, what can I say to break the ice with someone? What's your first name?
Bill.
Bill. You know, if I meet someone like Bill that truly seems to stick out in the crowd, hey, I did this with a guy, I won't even do it with Bill, at a McDonald's. The janitor at a McDonald's. He was the guy going around cleaning the tables up after people left, sweeping the floor, and just keeping the general appearance of the McDonald's up. And as I was eating, I was so impressed by this guy's effort. I mean, he was definitely not run-of-the-mill. Now, some of you might have not even noticed that. But you know what? If the business is on the front of your brain, you'll notice everything about people. Okay? That when I was sitting there, I'm thinking, I'm going to approach this guy. And here was what I said to him. I said, excuse me, I said, I've got to tell you something. I've been watching how you worked here, and I hope you take this for the compliment it's meant. But you know what? You are just too sharp to be working here. What's your background? And you know what his answer was? You're right, I am too sharp to be here. And he started telling me, and boy, I'll tell you what, he was too sharp to be there. But how many IBOs in this business would have walked right by that guy because he was a custodian at McDonald's? Because you didn't even notice. And when I approached him that way, I was complimenting him, and he opened right up. And I've done that with people at a 7-Eleven. When I see someone that just sticks out in the crowd, a waitress at a Denny's, or a counter person at Burger King recently up in a town not too far from here. You know, I've learned that when I do a function, I don't say anymore, okay, where I met these people. But this person was stuck out in the crowd. And I approached them. I'm going to talk about them on the third level. But you know, when you call somebody back, and if Bob says, yeah, no, I don't see Home Depot as a career, what do you have? Learn to watch your words. Learn to watch your words. I don't then spill my guts and say about the business. when he says, well, yes, I'm open, what do you have? Doesn't mean I have to tell him everything about the business or what do you have in mind. Because there's only 3 answers you'll ever get to that question, folks. Do you see what you're doing as a career? You open the other options. Answer number 1 is absolutely. I love what I'm doing. I can't imagine doing anything else. That's usually somebody who's too young and has not been kicked in the teeth yet and still thinks their job is going to be their hope. Or, on the other end of the spectrum, usually, someone who's kind of just going by. Either way, or someone who just has zero ambition. You know what you say to someone like that? Hey, that's great. God bless you. I said, go for it. Make it happen. I had something I want to talk to you about, but if you're happy with what you're doing, that's what counts. We'll talk to you later. And it's over. I don't try and change your mind. Well, geez, why do you like it there? That's not a good place to work. That's not my game. I'm fishing, folks. I'm fishing. I used to go fly fishing a lot in Ohio when I grew up out there. And in a day's time, you lay that fly out there hundreds and hundreds of times. But you only bring home a handful of fish. Isn't that right, Doug? Bill Barrett, right? All day long. Women look at that and say, that's supposed to be recreation. You're out there whipping that water. You only bring home a handful of fish. Here's the question. Do you honestly believe there was only a handful of fish that saw your bait? No. So what was unique about those fish? They were hungry. So when you're out and you throw that question, hey, do you see what you're doing as a career? You open the other option, you just laid the fly out. Hey, I love what I'm doing. That's okay. Hey, Tom, do you see what you're doing as a career? Would you open the other option? You're laying that fly right back out. And you know what? When you get to know someone who says they're okay with what they're doing, thank God, you just saved yourself time. In this economy, folks, there is not one of us in here that has time to waste. There are too many people who are hungry and looking. You know why? Because at one time, you could sit down with people who thought, they worked the lathe at the factory, and they thought, you know what, I'm going to be a millionaire. My 401k, man, it is blasting. Ain't nobody bragging about their 401k right now. And I'll tell you what, people have been so disillusioned and disenchanted with that, they're looking. They are looking. So you don't have time to take that half-alive fish and be playing it. Get it off the hook and go somewhere else. You're looking for a handful of live ones. So when you ask that question, either one of those, you look too sharp to be working here. What's your background? Or do you see what you're doing as a career? So anyways, one person will say, yes, I love what I'm doing. That's a rarity, folks. Number 2, are you kidding me? And they'll usually have some expletives in there. I'm looking for anything. What do you got? Or the third one, which is the more professional person who, they don't want to look too hungry. Like a veterinarian I approached one time that said, well, actually, veterinary medicine has been my profession, and my dream has always been to have my own small animal hospital. However, I do understand that it'd be wise to keep all my options open. What do you have? He just didn't want to show how hungry he really was, okay? Now, the only person I do change, do you see what you're doing as a career, you open other options, if I meet, like, one in particular is a doctor. Because it's a little bit demeaning to say to someone who went to school for 12 years and all this kind of stuff, hey, do you see what you're doing as a career? So I change it for someone like that, a little different, or someone who owns a very successful corporation. I don't say, hey, do you see this as a career? I would say something like, Bob, obviously medicine has been a career to you, but let me ask you, do you also look at other options? Or, Bill, obviously your business has done you well. You've made a career out of it, and you're very successful, but do you ever look at other options? That's the only way I would change that. But for 90% of people out there, it's a job situation you're discussing, and that's an appropriate question. And you know why that seems to work great, folks? If any of you are exposed to the public in what you do for work, or you're in a highly technical field, you have probably tried to be gotten by a headhunter who is trying to approach you to take you away from the company you work at. And that is the type of an approach that they would use. Hey, let me ask you something. Are you really happy at Cabletron, Joe? Are you really happy at IBM? Would you be interested? So when you use that approach, it's not a red flag. Stay away from approaches. Hey, you ever thought about making a little extra money in an internet-type business? Hey, you know what? My wife and I'll tell you what, I respect my wife. But I never use her in a reference in an approach. Hey, you know what? My wife and I have got a business that we'd like to talk. I don't say any of that. because when you use that, it says small. It says Mickey Mouse every time, okay? So I never talk about, hey, have you ever thought about a part-time business? You ever thought about making a little money on the side? You ever thought about starting something? All those things, folks, say small, and I don't look at my business as small. You know, you and I can go right down the road here in Portsmouth right now, if it was open, to a Dodge dealership or a Chevy dealership. And we can go on that Chevy dealership, and within 5 minutes, we can be out driving, test driving a car, with the exception possibly of that Corvette. But if we went down to Boston to a Rolls-Royce dealership, you're going to walk on that lot and say, hey, Jeeves, would you mind if we take her for a spin? Oh, but of course, but would you mind if we sat down for a moment and just got a chance to talk? You know, what do you think the talk's going to be about? Can you afford that Hummer or not? If you can't, you ain't taking for a test drive. And that's the way I feel about my business, folks. If you don't have things right, you're not taking it for a test drive. The third level of people you're going to meet, and that's somebody, and this is where you're ultimately wanting to get, folks. The first one is your initial list. The next one is going out and just getting cards and not even saying anything. But the ultimate is to get to this point where you can stand toe-to-toe with someone, and you know you're impressed with them, and you can just directly approach them. And that's like using an example, two examples. One is this fellow Bob that Sis and I were talking about. And you know what, folks, it's to the point that there are, I really believe, so many people that are hungry for this business that I just soon approach you face to face, and if it doesn't strike you right and we don't hit it off and you don't make my list, I just soon know it now, because I don't need to walk around with 30 names of people that really are maybes. I'd rather have 10 people that said, absolutely, I'm interested in getting together with you. So one example is my family, Sis and I, our 3 kids, were at a restaurant having breakfast. And the waitress, single gal, but through talking to her, we found out so much about her personal life. Because you know why? I don't sit there dumb, dead, and dull. I talk to her. Hey, how you doing? So you're from around here originally? I know in New England that's an oddity, talking to people. Okay? But you know what? Let's get back to being conversationalists and real people. Because there's a lot of people out there dying to find someone to let them tell their story. So we got talking to her and found out she was a 25-year-old that moved up on her own from down Massachusetts and had a place of her own. And you know what this kind of stuff was telling me? Single gal, place of her own, and living in an area that's not cheap, right? And making it on her own because she just wanted to change her life. I said, you know what? This girl's got some character to her. So Sis, you know, she's talking to her. We kind of double team. I really wasn't feeling that great that morning, and I let Sis do the talking. But when the lady went back, she said, "You got to approach her. Steve, talk to her. Get her name and number." So when the bill came, I said to her, I said, "Hey, listen, let me just tell you, I wanted, if you don't mind, my wife and I, she is really impressed with you. She loves your attitude, and the fact that you've moved up here and you're doing what you're doing really says a lot about who you are. Now, I'm in a business of my own, and I tell you what, do you see this restaurant as a career or waitressing as a career, or you open the other options?" She said, "No, I'm open. What do you want?" I said, "Well, look, here's 2 cards. One for yourself, because I have my cards. One for yourself, and on this one, put your name and home number. And I said, I'll give you a call in a few days when I have some time. We'll get together for a cup of coffee, and I'll explain the details." "Oh, yeah, no problem." You know what, folks? I just soon, if she didn't want to do that, I just soon know right then. This is where you want to go. When Sis met Bob, she told me, it's funny, I mean, it's like, sick him. Hey, I met this guy, sick him. Here's where he's at. Here's the day he's worked, these are the hours he works, and so forth. So I went in, and, you know, I'm not there to act like I'm looking for anything. I'm looking for Bob. And I go right up to him, and I said, "Hey, Bob, my name's Steve Blyfight, and, you know, I'm not shopping here today. To be honest with you, I'm here because of you. Because a couple weeks ago, my wife met you, and she was so impressed with your attitude and your people skills that she insisted I come back and talk to you." And boy, the guy just was, "Oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much." Next thing you know, he's telling me his whole life story, and I'm thinking, I can't believe this guy's working in this place. And then I finally said, "Look, Bob, let me explain why I'm here." I said, "A few years ago, I was involved in the startup of a large internet company. And we worked with some companies like Microsoft and IBM to set it up. And I says, unlike most dot-coms. I said, we are really doing phenomenal. We just did a little under $1 billion this year. And I said, I would like to sit down and show you what I'm doing, see if it's something that you and I could work on. I'm looking for one, maybe two key people to work with me on it. And she was just so impressed with you that I'm open to getting with you. Man, he couldn't reach for his wallet quick enough to get me a card. All right? And you know what? When I talk to him, matter of fact, I'd like to do a little role playing here. Is this mic working now, John? Okay. Why don't you take that? Let's act like Josh is somebody that I have contacted. I want you to hear how this goes. Because if I did nothing else today but talk about how to meet people, I believe I would do you a great justice. Because that is the source of the wellspring of this business. Hey, Josh, how you doing? This is Steve Leifheit.
Great, Steve. How are you?
Real good, real good. I don't know if you remember me, but we met the other day. I was standing in line at the Dairy Queen. They were closing down for the season. They were selling stuff for 50 cents. And I was the fellow that had the 3 kids. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that for sure.
I use that as an example, folks, because that is, in fact, as the type of thing I would have met somebody at. Hey, listen, Josh, remember when we were talking, you told me you worked for a high-tech firm in Boston. Forgive me, I can't remember what it was, but that's not why I'm calling you. I was so impressed with your people skills and how you handled yourself that, to be honest with you, I wrote your name down and remembered that I wanted to talk to you again. I felt really compelled to have to give you a call back. Let me ask you something, Josh. Do you see what you're doing for work right now? Do you see that in the high-tech field as a career, or would you be open to other options?
I'm always open to other options.
Okay, great. Well, I'll tell you, let me explain what I have in mind. Where I don't know you and you don't know me, really, I'd like to just take it to the first step. Let's get together for a cup of coffee so we can get to know each other, and let me see if I feel comfortable enough with you that we could maybe work together, because I'm only looking for one, maybe 2 key people to work with. Can't promise you anything, but you have caught my attention enough that I'm open to getting with you. What would be better for you, an evening, an afternoon, or what?
Evenings usually work.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that, or would you rather meet somewhere else?
No, that's fine.
Okay, great. So how about 7 o'clock, maybe Thursday evening?
7:30.
7:30 sounds good. And there we go. Now, let's play a little bit. You asked me some more questions, okay? Josh, hi, Josh. This is Steve Leifheit. How's life treating you?
Great, Steve. How are you?
Real good. I don't know if you remember me, but I was the fella that came in and talked to you about the kitchen cabinets at Home Depot last Sunday. But you know what? You stuck out in the crowd. You know, I go to a lot of different businesses, and not too often I see a salesperson that really had the skills that you did. And I felt compelled to call back and ask you, do you see Home Depot or the retail atmosphere as a career, or would you be open to any other options?
Well, I may be. What do you mean?
Okay, well, let me tell you exactly what I mean right now. Is where I don't know you, I just like to get together for a cup of coffee before I really go into a lot of details. And at that time, if we feel comfortable with each other, then I'll go into some overview, a little bit of a brief outline of what I'm doing. And if it looks like it'd be of interest to the 2 of us, then we can take it to the next step. But if not, we just shake hands and call it a night. Does that sound okay to you?
I guess so, but can you tell me more?
Well, I'll tell you exactly all I can right now on the phone. A couple years ago, I was involved in the startup of a large internet company, and unlike most of them, we are actually doing phenomenal. I'm looking for 1, maybe 2 key people to work with me on it, and I can't promise you anything, and that's about as far as I want to go right now. But let's take that next step, and let's see if I am comfortable with you, and vice versa, and see if it's something we can work on together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, great. Now, if he pushed it to the point and said, well, look, you know, can you tell me more than that, or I need to know more than that, you know, I'm not going to get with him, folks, because it's a Rolls Royce, and his attitude has already disqualified him. And if he said something like, look, if you're not going to tell me anything more than that, we don't need to get together, my answer would be, you're absolutely right, Josh. If that's the way you feel about it, then you're right. We really don't need to get together. But with, like, Bob, I just went right there and said the same thing. Bob, a couple years ago, I was involved in the startup of a large internet company. I want to talk with you. Here's another example. I went to a Burger King. The counter person helped me and had so much personality, and she just stuck out. So I was meeting an IBO there, and when we left, I told this IBO, I said, we're going to contact that person. I want to show you how this is done. Now, how many of you believe I really did that to help that IBO out? I didn't do it at all. I did not say that to help the IBO out. I said it because once I said it, I knew I would have to perform. She didn't know it, but I was using her to make me do what I wanted to do. You got to learn that. You know, there are millions and millions of dollars spent in America on something that you could do at home for free. Do you know what it is? Working out. You could do it in your own basement or bedroom, but people go to health clubs, pay these fees and everything. Why? Because once you're in the atmosphere, you're going to tend to perform. So trick yourself into performing. So we went over. Now this gal, who I think was a manager or assistant manager, is now sitting with some coworkers who are her, subordinates. It didn't make any difference. I went up to her and I said this to her. I said, "Excuse me." I said, "My name is Steve Life." I said, "We don't know each other, do we?" She goes, "No," but she says, "You do look familiar." I said, "You kind of look familiar also." But I said, "Please forgive me for being so, abrupt or whatever, but you helped me. I loved your attitude." And I said, I go in a lot of Burger Kings, and I said, "You really stick out in the crowd." And I said, "I got to ask you, do you see Burger King as a career, or would you be open to other options?" And she said, "No." She said, I'd be open. And I said, "Well, great. If you don't mind, here's 2 cards. You keep one. The other one, put your name and phone number down." She did it without any problem. Now, if she said, "No, I love it here," oh, great, no problem. You know what? I just had to ask you because I knew, there's a good chance you and I may never meet again. Matter of fact, that's what I said to her. I said, "Forgive me for being so forward here, but, we've never met, and I'm worried that we may never meet again. And I've got to ask you something. I'm so impressed with how you handle me. Do you see Burger King as a career, or you open up?" Because you know what, folks? Saying somebody, "Please forgive me for being so aggressive or forward or whatever, but you know what? I've never met you, and I'm afraid that if I don't take this opportunity right now, we may never cross paths again." I wonder how many people you have crossed paths with how many, matter of fact, I asked this question, right, answer, okay? How many of you have ever met someone briefly like that? I don't care if it was a cashier at a Walmart, and you left it and you had this sick feeling in your stomach. How many of you ever had that? And you know what? What's scary is I wonder how many of those could have led to something. And you know what? Sometimes it's not even that person, but someone they know. But we're so stuck in the box because we think, everyone's told us, you really shouldn't talk to someone like that. They might feel uncomfortable with you saying, we are living by a set of rules that are not real. Somebody has lied to us. We need to come out of who we are. 3 good ones will make you a free person for the rest of your life. 9 good ones, what will do for you? $1.3 million, $100,000 a month. $100,000 a month. Think about that, $25,000 a week. You know why I keep saying that? Because some of you are struggling to believe $2,000 a month. And when you start realizing, I was at a meeting not that many months ago where a diamond stood up and said, "I can't remember how the last time I didn't make $100,000 a month." Okay? I mean, it's like, wow. 25,000. I'll tell you, it's staggering, I think. I'm not just saying that because it's a cool thing to say. I want you to understand what you got your hands on. You know what? $25,000 a week. Do you think that's worth coming out of who you are right now? Do you think it's worth putting it on the line and going up to an individual like Bob or this other woman or whoever it might be and standing there and say, "Hey, do you see what you're doing as a career?" Risking them saying, "No, I'm happy. What are you talking about?" You know what? In the course of time, there were times that Steve Lifeit embarrassed himself. So what? I pulled the fly out and threw it somewhere else. That's all. That's all, folks. 3 good ones, a free person. 6 will make you pretty doggone wealthy. 9 will do what? Okay? And some of you are hoping that your boss will give you a 25-cent an hour raise because you've got your 5th-year anniversary coming up. Circumstances are rulers of the weak, but tools to the wise. Are you mastering the circumstances, or are you living under them? I'll tell you, that you get up that, you got the list, the cards, and then that direct approach, folks. That's where you want to get. And you know what? It becomes so exciting when you get out there and start meeting people. Can you imagine having going out there and meeting someone like that. Do you know how exciting it is when you meet a guy like this, Bob, who's, I mean, incredibly sharp? I don't know if he's going to get in. And it's funny, too, because the other day, a couple days gone by, I hadn't called him. He was calling me. I love that. I love that, okay? How much more exciting is it to call someone like that than someone that you're trying to twist the arm? Okay, I guarantee you it gives you a whole lot more posture. Let's see here. How about John? What's your name? Sean, why don't you come up here a second? I'm going to use, come on up here. I'm going to do something to illustrate the system. I'll talk about the system a little bit here and why it's so important. What's your background, Sean?
Plumbing.
Plumbing, okay. So you work a job?
Yep.
Okay. You ever lifted weights?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you lay down on the bench there? Now, these pumpkins, they rigged this up quick, okay? Get yourself comfortable like you're going to bench press, okay? Let me illustrate something here, and then when I tell you, you can start doing it. In weightlifting, a lot of times you'll have somebody there called a spotter that helps, you know, so if it's too much or what have you. But Sean is going to start lifting, and I'm going to act as the spotter, okay? Go ahead, Sean. Okay, Sean, as you're doing it, what do you feel?
You doing all the work?
That's right, okay? Okay, now sit up for a second, okay? Now, I was doing the work. When he was pushing up, I was actually pulling it, and he wasn't doing anything. How long would it take for Sean to build up muscles with me doing that? Long time. Now, let's do it again. Without me helping. Now, I know it's no big weight, but it's a big difference, isn't it? Okay? Now, if he kept doing it, these were real weights, he'd actually build up muscle, right? Go ahead, Chad, you sit up. Here's the point. The spotter is an analogy of a job or a boss. A lot of us come in this business thinking we are the next best thing to slice bread because we're successful in this business, successful in this job, successful here. And then we find out the truth is the disciplines it takes to succeed were really being performed by a spotter called a boss. We didn't have the disciplines at all. He's the one that told us we had to get up at 6 and be there by 7. He's the one, if you're a salesman, said, you better hit this quota or you're out. You didn't do it. Or if you're, whatever business or career you're in, if you have a boss relationship with someone, that person's really been a spotter, and you haven't performed the self-discipline the boss has. And you could have been there 10, 20, 30 years. It doesn't make any difference. But you get into this business, you find out, guess what? You didn't build up any muscle. It was all for nothing. And then you get in this business, and what do you find out? Ooh, boy, maybe I wasn't quite the person I thought. Anybody relate to that? Okay? Thanks a lot, Sean. Now, here's my point. You get into business, the system takes the place of the boss and starts helping you with the disciplines you need because you come in weak-muscled when it comes to discipline, and you've got to learn the process. So here's my recommendation. That's why we have things like a pace setter tape or a book of the month or functions. You might ask yourself, why do I need to be plugged into this stuff? Because you got to remember, you don't have a boss now. I can't fire Sean, not that he's in my business, but I can't fire him. Sean, little by little, has got to take these flabby muscles that he thought he'd build some strength up all these years, even though he's a successful such and such. He's coming in this business, he's finding out, oh man, I wasn't quite as strong as I thought. And the system kicks in to be his spotter to start helping him develop those muscles so he can have the discipline to build it. You're with me on that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because here's the thing, it applies to you, but also applies to people you sponsor in this business. Because I know when I first got involved, because I had a sales background and I seemed outgoing and I was a Dale Carnegie graduate and blah, 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 that there were some people who thought I was going to tear this thing up. But you know what? I didn't quite have the disciplines inside here that what you would have thought, because I just didn't. The boss had always done it for me. So the business will kick in to help you start developing those disciplines so that you can become the person that you really need to be. So that's why you need to be at the functions. That's why you need to listen to those tapes every day. But you know, when I listen to a tape, it never fails. I start getting excited. My attitude automatically goes up. And I consider myself to be pretty good at controlling my attitude to begin with. But when I listen to a tape, my hope, my belief, everything jumps up. So the point is that you need to start developing the muscle and get away from the things that's destroying it. You know, I was never somebody who watched the Seinfelds and the Friends and all that kind of garbage, but I was a news junkie. I was a political junkie. And you know what? You have to sit down and analyze that and ask yourself, are you hurting yourself? Are you trying on this end to put positive in, and then you're just dumping more negative in here? Are you really counteracting what you're trying to accomplish here? Because that could be a grave disservice you're doing to yourself, and you don't even realize it. Because you know what? In the box, guess what the answer is? Well, everybody's got TV. Really? That's not true. But if you're thinking in the box, you know, it's kind of like when you listen to financial counseling from people in this business. You know, the average person out there says, well, everybody's got a car payment. Well, that's not true. But if you're thinking in the box, you start thinking that way. And I'm suggesting, folks, start thinking out of the box. Look at your life. Look at the things in this business that are being suggested. Weigh it against what you're doing and say, hey, have I been locking myself in to a set of rules that's actually been holding me back? And I'll tell you what, maybe you'll come up with some convictions on some things that will make that apparent. Bob, would you come up here for a second, please? One last thing I'm going to cover, and then we're going to be out of here. Stand right up there, Bob. Okay? Back in the in the 90s, mid-90s to late 90s, turn around, I want them to see you, as dapper as you are. The high-tech business was really roaring. And there was so much of that business was started by, you know, kind of rebel type of people from the corporate world. And one of the big things that they were so excited about is that they kind of broke the mold of dress and appearance going to work. Okay? And for a long time, corporations started thinking, maybe we're not doing this right. And even law firms started coming to work on, instead of having a dress down Friday, people were coming with a polo shirt or casual, sharp business casual. They started redefining the appearance. Well, guess what? After everything has shuffled out, corporations have re-looked at it. And guess what they've really come to find out is that, you know what, that really hurt productivity. It wasn't as cool as we thought. And maybe it wasn't as advantageous as we thought. So I want to do a little test to show something with you, okay? When you're out, now, you know, tonight you're here, we're all in the business. But you know what, tomorrow night you go show somebody. I want you to analyze the appearance, what you're projecting to someone and why it's important. I'm going to do a little thing, and I ask you to please do. I'm going to ask you in a minute here to close your eyes. And I'm going to mention a word, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay? Okay, close your eyes. Apple. Car. House. Successful business person. Okay, open your eyes. You know, there's a funny thing about us, and that is that we talk in words, but we think in pictures. When I said apple, Sean, what did you see? Red? A green apple. Now here's the thing about it. If Sean was going shopping for the household, well, he's going to consider other people. But it's lunchtime, and Sean is interested in buying a snack for himself. When he goes to the produce department, what color apple is Sean going to reach for? When he said he saw a red apple, what color do you think he's going to reach for? Red apple, folks. Because the red apple matches the picture. He ain't not going to reach for a green one. So what he just told me is that he desires more of a red apple than a green or yellow delicious. How about a boat? When I said that, or a car, how many of you agree? Raise your hands. I'm asking this question. How many have to agree when I said those words, you in fact saw a picture in your mind? Raise your hands. Okay? Now, each picture tells you what matches what it is, the definition of that word is to you. So when I said successful business person, how many of you would agree that for the most part, as a man, unless you saw a woman, okay, Bob fits the picture? raise your hands. Okay? Now, I can guarantee you that was not 100%, but it was about 98. And here's the point, is if Bob was going to show Sean, is that kind of picture you saw?
Yeah, he's my sponsor.
Okay, all right. Okay. If Bob went to show Sean the business, and Sean in the back of his mind thinks of a successful business person as a man in a suit, white shirt, tie, looking like this, and he comes in a polo shirt and khakis, guess what? He ain't buying the picture. And Bob just did himself a disservice because he didn't match that guy's picture. Now remember I said you were about 98% that agreed with this picture. Guess what? The other 2%? Too bad, so sad. I'm not going to dress for 2%. I'm dressing for 98. Because I'm trying to match the picture of the widest percentage of society. I grant you, there are people out there that you could go and sit in front and show the plan, you could pick your nose and break wind, you'd still sponsor them. But they're far and few between, right? So what you're trying to do, next month you can come, they have a real professional speaker coming next month, okay? My point is this, sometimes we do things because it's our thing. Well, you know what? If I was Bob's sponsor, now Bob could be a great old friend of mine, and I can do just about anything with Bob. But and it's only my business if I show it to him and I do something foolish. But the moment I go with Bob to show Sean the business, now I'm messing around with Bob's future. And it ain't fair for me to do that. Because, see, Sean might accept him any way that he comes, but he is not going to accept me anyway, if they were good old friends, see. But as a stranger to him, because I'm coming with Bob, I have to meet the picture without a doubt. So, you know, when it comes to appearance, this guy right here is a classic example of where you want to head. A dark suit, white shirt. You know what? I love powder blue. I own powder blue shirts. I do wear powder blue shirts from time to time. Very, very acceptable business dress. There's one problem. Is with white, you can't screw white up. White is white. But you know, blue, there are different shades, and some of them aren't appropriate. Or a striped shirt. I love a nice, fine pinstriped shirt. But you know, one guy sees my pinstripe, next thing you know, he's wearing a big wide stripe like that. Now, here's my point. You might come to this thinking, now, wait a minute, this guy's starting to intrude on my personal choice here, my personal beliefs. Well, here's why I would do that. I'm going to use Bob as an example. Let's say I'm Bob's sponsor, okay? How many of you have children? How many of you have a daughter, okay? How many of you would let your daughter go out on a first date, a job interview, whatever it might be, looking inappropriate? Not one of you, would you? Why is that? Because you love your daughter and it's obvious. Well, let me tell you something. This man means more to me than PVBV. I do care about him. If he's somebody in my business, he is not a PV producing unit to me. He is an individual that I care about. The fact, how many of you ever shown the plan and got a no? If this guy is a yes, I respect him for the fact he at least gave me a yes, and I'm going to give him the best shot possible. I wouldn't send my daughter out inappropriately. I'm not going to let him go out without talking to him because I care about him, and I care about his future. And it's important that Bob, we develop that relationship because in time he's going to see that whenever I counsel him on something, it's through the fact that I have a heart for him, not just because it's all dollar sign on his forehead. So appearance is important, and you share that with someone about proper appearance because you care about the fact. I tell people, look, if you're willing to give this thing a shot, I want to make sure we give it the best shot possible. And so that's why I would take time and talk to someone like him or yourself about, hey, here's really what you want to do when you go out to show the plan. Okay? Thanks a lot, Bob. Anyways, I'm going to wrap up now and just say, let me ask you this. Today has been kind of an unusual first session for me. I usually have a lot of jokes and a lot of humor and stuff like that, and I really, really didn't today. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing that's on my heart. I got to be honest with you. I live here. And probably to a great fault, one thing I have screwed up on in building this business is that most of the time when I build depth, it's going down to Logan, getting on a plane, and flying out of New England. And I'm looking at something. I travel around the country a lot building this business. And there's one thing that thrills me whenever I go somewhere that makes me excited about, hey, this is a great place to build the business. It's 3 factors. You tell me if these factors don't apply here. Factor number 1, high cost of living. Number 2, high price to make a living. Those of you who live in Massachusetts deal with 128, 93, 495, whatever. It's getting, even in Portsmouth now, goodness gracious, we have rush hour traffic from Dover to Portsmouth twice a day. And the third ingredient is the good life all around you, but people aren't getting it. Those 3 factors create an unbelievable atmosphere to build this business. Folks, this area fits that mold perfectly. And with the way the economy is turned, there's a dynasty waiting to happen. I believe the truth is, folks, we as a team that attend this location should make a commitment together that this become the largest location within the system, the pro-biz system that we're a part of, because there's no reason that it shouldn't, okay? Now, let me tell you why sometimes that happens. 1988, Sis and I went to Hawaii for the first time ever. And we were at an art show on Waikiki Beach. And we saw a watercolor painting of these flowers that Sis, and she just wanted to have it as the first piece of original artwork we'd ever bought. And we mounted it. It's right by our front door now. And you know what? For the longest time, when I would go by that picture, I'd stand there and look at it for a second, and every time I looked at it, I smelled Hawaii. I heard the waves. I felt that warm, humid air that was there that day. Every time I looked at it, I relived that experience like I was there. But you know what? After time went by, I find myself many times walking out that door and I don't even see the picture. Because sometimes you get so used to what you have around you, you become blind to it. And I believe if there was ever a time that we should reread the book Acres of Diamonds, it's now. Because there is absolutely no reason that we should not be exploding. And you know what? $100,000 a month is so realistic for where we're at. We could build a dynasty and not have to get out of the Providence to Portland corridor. Do you understand that? Seriously. It's going to get out of there, but we've got just so many people around. And here's the last thing I want to share with you as a poem to illustrate something. This is not an unknown. You didn't get into a business of blue sky and promises. You got into a business with examples. You have people, very real people that you know, see, and touch. This is not a TV thing that you called in and had some books and tapes sent to you for $400 and $500. You know people who are very successful. You've had coffee with people who are very successful in your business support teams. This is not an unknown entity. You're not in the dark. You've had people who have gone before you and have actually done what you're attempting to do. Grab on that reality. And I just want to share this closing that I think illustrates the fact that you have had people lead the way. And it's called The Bridge Builder. It goes like this. An old man traveling a lone highway came in the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim, for the sullen tide held no fear for him. But he turned as he reached the other side, and builded a bridge to span the tide. "Old man," cried a fellow pilgrim near, "you're wasting your time by building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. Why build you a bridge at the end of the day?" The old man lifted his head to say, "Good friend, on the path on which I've come this day, there followeth after me a youth whose feet must pass this way. And that which was is not to me, but to that fair-haired boy a pitfall be? He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him. You all have leaders that have set the example. They've been out there and built the bridges. Grab on their hands, folks. This is a very real experience for you. Make it real. I love you. We'll see you later.